Part 1. Before the silence. I used to believe that love could survive anything. That if two people were truly meant for each other, no storm could drown them. And for a while, it felt true. When I met Anna, I was sure I had found the woman I'd spend the rest of my life with. We were fire and calm, chaos and balance, ambition and peace. She made me feel like I could breathe in a world that had always suffocated me. We met on a rainy Tuesday. She was wearing a red coat, soaked through, and cursing under her breath at a broken umbrella. I offered her mine, not as a flirt, but because she looked like she could really use a win. She smiled, thanked me, and disappeared into the storm. 2 weeks later, I saw her again in a small bookstore downtown. That time, I didn't let her walk away. The first year with Anna felt like a dream. We traveled. We danced in the kitchen at midnight. We made love like it was the only thing that could keep the world spinning. Every moment with her felt raw, unfiltered, real. She was laughter and sunlight, and I was obsessed with her. We talked about kids, sure. But in that hypothetical way couples do when life feels too perfect to ever change. And then, unexpectedly, it did. She got pregnant. We were scared. But happy. Or at least I was. Pregnancy changed her. Not in the way I'd expected. Not just the morning sickness or the mood swings. It was deeper than that. It was as if the Anna I knew was starting to disappear, piece by piece. I chalked it up to hormones. To stress. I told myself she'd bounce back. Our son, Leo, was born in winter. He had her eyes, stormy gray, and my hands. I cried when I held him. I really did. I thought this was it. The start of our next adventure. But somewhere between midnight feedings and colic screams, between dirty diapers and sleepless nights, we started to lose us. The first sign was silence. She stopped laughing at my jokes. She stopped touching me in that absent-minded, affectionate way. I'd brush her shoulder in the hallway, and she'd flinch like I was a stranger. The bed became a no man's land. I tried to be understanding. I told myself, it's temporary. She needs time. But the weeks turned to months. And the space between us grew colder, wider. Sex disappeared completely. At first, I didn't complain. I mean, she was tired. I got that. But after 6 months, a year, every attempt I made, every touch, was gently, and then not so gently, rejected. She said she felt unattractive. That she was exhausted. That she had nothing left to give. But I was starving. Not just for sex, but for closeness. For that feeling of being wanted. Desired. Seen. I started to feel invisible in my own home. She loved our son. There was no doubt about that. But it was like her heart had only so much space, and I had been squeezed out. I tried talking to her. Once, I sat her down and asked, "Do you still want me?" She didn't answer. That silence hurt more than any shouted argument ever could. I began to spiral. Started staying late at work just to avoid the cold house. I'd scroll through old pictures of us, laughing at a beach, drunk at a wedding, tangled in bedsheets, wondering where it all went wrong. And then came the worst night. I came home to find her in tears, sitting on the floor of the nursery. Leo was asleep. She looked at me like I was a ghost. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said. "I'm not a woman. I'm just a mother." I knelt beside her, tried to hold her, but she pulled away. It was in that moment I realized we were on different paths, drifting further every day. Still, I couldn't leave. Not when there was a child in the mix. Not when I still loved her, or at least the version of her I once knew. But I was aching. Every single day. And what terrified me more than anything, was that I was starting to resent the very thing that had brought us to this place. Our child. Part 2. The cracks in the mirror. I didn't say it out loud, of course. Not even to myself, at first. But the resentment was real. I hated how I felt about Leo sometimes. Not him, never him, but what his arrival had done to us. What it had done to her. To me. To me and her. The two people who used to laugh until 3 a.m. and kiss like we'd just fallen in love. Now, we were roommates. Co-parents. Strangers. She was up at 5 a.m. every day, hair in a bun, dark circles under her eyes, always in the same old robe. She never looked at me like she used to. She barely looked at me at all. And I didn't know if it was postnatal depression, or just a new version of her I had to accept. But how do you accept someone who no longer wants you? I tried everything. I planned a weekend trip. Arranged for her mother to take Leo. Booked a cabin, made a playlist, even brought champagne. She canceled last minute. I can't leave him, she said flatly, like I'd asked her to abandon him in the woods. Another time, I left little notes around the house, reminders of our love. Remember this. With an old photo. You're still beautiful, taped to the mirror. I miss us. She didn't mention them. Just moved them, like clutter, into a drawer. So, I stopped trying. And that's when the guilt started growing claws. Because I noticed other women. At work. On the street. At Leo's pediatrician's office, one of the nurses with warm eyes and a kind smile. She made a joke one day while weighing Leo and touched my arm when I laughed. It was a small thing. But I hadn't been touched in so long that it felt like fire. I didn't cheat. Not physically. But I started fantasizing. Not about sex, necessarily, but about being wanted again. Touched. Smiled at. Acknowledged. Some nights, I'd lie in bed next to Anna, awaken staring at the ceiling, wondering, how did we end up here? Is this forever? One night, I reached over. Just to touch her shoulder. She turned away, murmured, I'm tired. Something inside me snapped. Are you ever not tired? I whispered. But she heard me. Loud and clear. She sat up slowly. Looked at me with eyes that didn't belong to the woman I married. What do you want from me, Daniel? Sex. Affection. I'm running on fumes. I spend all day trying not to cry while cleaning puke off the floor and rocking a screaming baby who won't sleep unless I hold him standing. I can't even take a piss in peace. And you're over there sulking because I don't want you. I just want to feel like we're still a team, I said. Like we still matter. She got out of bed. Walked out of the room. That night, she slept on the couch. The next morning, nothing was said. She made Leo's breakfast. I made coffee. We danced around each other like strangers in a hotel kitchen. And so, the cycle began. Silence. Cold stares. Polite small talk. Numbness. The only time we truly spoke was through Leo, passing him back and forth like a baton. He needs a change. Did you pick up diapers? Can you rock him while I get 10 minutes alone? And me. I kept going to work. Pretending. Smiling. Making small talk with coworkers. But inside, I was cracking. I began questioning everything. What is a man supposed to do when his needs aren't met? Is it selfish to want more when your partner is drowning? How long can you survive on memories? One evening, I walked in the door and found Anna crying again. This time she wasn't hiding it. I don't think I love you anymore, she whispered. And just like that, it felt like someone had torn the air from my lungs. I think you love who I used to be, she added. Before Leo. Before motherhood consumed me. But that version of me. I don't know if she's coming back. I stood there, holding Leo's toy giraffe, speechless. I don't want to separate, she said, softer this time. But I also don't want to keep pretending we're okay. Then what do we do? I asked, the desperation leaking out of me. We have a kid, Anna. I'm not walking out on him. I don't want you to, she said. But maybe, we need space. From each other. Just to breathe. She moved into the guest room that night. And I sat alone in the silence of our marriage, wondering what was worse, staying in a loveless home or tearing a family apart. Part 3. The space between us. Anna's moving into the guest room didn't feel like a decision. It felt like a confirmation. That whatever we had, whatever fire once kept us warm, had turned to ash. The silence between us wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was a wall. And Leo was the only one allowed to pass through it. We functioned like divorced roommates who happened to share a toddler. Schedules, diapers, baths, doctor appointments. Me in the office until late, her at home, exhausted. When I came home, she handed Leo off like a baton, and we barely looked each other in the eyes. But at night, when the house was finally quiet, I would lie in the bed alone and think about her body, her laughter, her warmth. And then I'd think about what I had now. A cold bed, a woman behind a wall, a family that looked perfect on paper and dead in reality. Then something happened. A moment that flipped everything upside down, in the smallest, most mundane way. It was a Sunday. Rain tapped against the windows, Leo was down for a nap, and I found myself in the kitchen pouring cereal. Anna came in, still in her robe, hair unbrushed. She looked worn, raw, real. She leaned against the counter and asked, "Do you ever wonder if we made a mistake?" I looked up. At having Leo. I asked. "No," she said quickly, then hesitated. At thinking we were ready for this. There it was. That truth I'd buried so deep inside, hearing it out loud hurt more than I expected. I nodded. Every day. And then, for the first time in a long time, she laughed. Just a little. Bitter and real. "That makes me feel a little better," she whispered. Because I thought I was the only one. We sat at the table and talked for the first time in months. Really talked. She told me she felt invisible. That the pressure to be a perfect mom crushed her. That she mourned the woman she used to be. That some days she didn't feel like a wife, or a mother, or even a human being, just a machine on autopilot. I told her how lonely I felt. How I craved touch. How I felt guilty for needing her when she was barely keeping herself together. I told her I missed her so much it hurt. And I told her I was terrified we were already too far gone. She started crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know how to tell you I was drowning." I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. We started therapy after that. It wasn't a miracle fix. Some sessions ended with more silence. Others with tears. Sometimes we left more angry than when we went in. But slowly, painfully, we began pulling pieces back from the wreckage. Not to rebuild the same house, but to create something new. Honest. Imperfect. Raw. We started touching again. Small things. A brush of the hand. A tired hug in the hallway. Kisses on the forehead. And eventually, one night, without planning, we made love. It wasn't passionate or wild. It was slow, aching, hesitant. But it was us, finding our way back through the dark. I wish I could say that fixed everything. That we became the perfect couple again. But life doesn't work like that. What I can say is that we learned how to talk. How to cry in front of each other. How to be honest when things were breaking. We learned that love isn't constant fireworks. Sometimes, it's just choosing to stay, even when every part of you wants to run. We never stopped loving each other. We just forgot how to show it. And we let the silence grow louder than the love. But now we whisper through the noise. We still fight. We still get tired. We still have nights where we roll away from each other in frustration. But we also have mornings where Leo climbs into bed and lies between us, and we hold hands over his little body and smile. And some days, I look at her, really look, and I see glimpses of that girl in the red coat again. Only now, she's stronger, wiser, battle-tested, and still mine. If you're reading this wondering whether it's worth fighting for your relationship after a child rips everything apart, I'll say this. It's hard. Brutally hard. But sometimes, love isn't about never falling. It's about crawling, side by side, until you can stand again. Thank you for watching. Write in the comments, have you ever gone through something like this? How did you handle it? Let's talk. Let's be honest. Let's help each other through it.